just when we were leaving for Florida, I book coach tickets, but I have status in so many miles that I often get upgraded. And we were sitting in the airport, and they called us up and said, passengers rough, come up here. And so we go up, and they're like, hey, we have an upgrade available, but only one seat in the first class. And so just one of you want to go. So and so Becky and I in unison, she said, no, thank you. And I said, I'll take it. But then I said, just kidding. And I went and sat back with her.
Did you see that I brought a blanket back? Because I'm a little chilly.
I did. Well, I wish I was chilly. It's hot as fucking here.
I'm so cold.
But I figure I can work a bit out of that. That's a lie about me taking the seat. But then we were in the exit row on the plane, and that turned into we walk in there like, you're in an exit row. Are you willing to assist other passengers? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, that's a fucking lie. You're not helping. We get on the plane, and she sits down, and then she asked me to get something out of my bag in the overhead, and I stood up and smashed my head on the thing, and she starts laughing hysterically as she does. And so then I decided to tell everyone around us what a terrible idea it is for her to be in the exit row, because she will not be helping anyone do anything if the time comes. Self-preservation will.
Ahoy, friends.
So all that
in the YouTube,
those two real life scenarios, which was the offer of the one upgraded seat and her saying that she would help people in the exit row, which is a lie from the pit of hell. I can work something out of that. She ain't helping nobody. That's
that's very sad.
It'd be like the Roadrunner, just pew, boom, she's gone, and just leave everybody. You would be better off having a baby sitting in that seat to open that door for other people.
Yeah.
Oh, lots of people coming
Lucy
in.
says, happy spring, folks. Lucy, where are you? I thought we had someone who was always here from like New Zealand, where it's the opposite of the seasons it is here.
Oh, speaking of New Zealand, that reminds me, I have our final episode of True Crime Binge dropped today, at least the final for now, and it was with Ryan Wolf, who's from New Zealand.
How about that?
Went to school with Ryan
Wolf.
It.
That did not sound like anyone from.
No,
it's a terrible. It's a really hard accent to do. Really hard accent to do.
It's basically an Australian accent.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
don't
it's pretty
say that to a Kiwi. Don't
say
that to a Kiwi.
Close. Pretty darn close.
Different.
Hey, Valerie, glad you made it. But I forgot, so I need to put together and put on social media, because during that conversation, somehow Shriners came up, and I said something about Shriners and their tiny motorcycles and their funny hats, and they both acted like I was insane and continued to tell and shame me, made me doubt myself and believe that, because I think we were talking about the Freemasons. Oh, look at that! There's Erica right there in the chat. And she made fun of me because I was like, I think Shriners were part of the Freemasons, those guys with the tiny bikes and the funny hats. And she was like,
Freemasons?
Oh, yes, they are. Are you going to try the same gaslighting bullshit that Erica tried with me?
I didn't know that. Wait, are they? Shriners are Freemasons?
No, I can't believe it.
And you will see at the end. So the Zoom was still going and still recorded, and Erica looked it up at the end of the episode, and I believe her exact words were, God damn it, why are you always right?
Oh, Erica, don't say that. Even in the heat of the moment,
I got it recorded.
Say he's always right. That's
right.
He'll use that against you forever.
This video
I can't believe that hasn't made it onto the soundboard you never use anymore.
All Shriners are Masons, but not all Masons are Shriners.
There it is.
Told you.
It's like all jacuzzis are hot tubs, but not all hot tubs.
All Shriners are Masons, but not all Masons are Shriners.
Okay. I thought the Masons were more into, like, I guess the Shriner thing seems so goofball and like silly, and I thought the Masons were like, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about Fight Club. That's the first for the Fight Club. Don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah.
Everything we have involves a compass and some
everything everything about the Masons is top secret, except the 5 guys they send out with the funny hats and the tiny motorcycles at the parades. And I have, you'll see it today on my social media. I have Erica on the Zoom saying, damn it, Bob, why are you always right? And as you just heard, Zach, I would like an apology from you as well, because you very rudely and directly said, They're not part of the Masons.
I think that's exactly. I think that is exactly what I sounded like when I said that.
They're not part of the Masons, Bob.
Now I'm not apologizing.
Talking only through your nose is what that is.
That's right.
Classic Zach.
Kathy's great uncle was a Shriner. See, she knows. So he was also.
That's the thing. Is
a Mason.
anyone right now a Shriner? Like, is a 20-year-old guy like, yeah, I'm a Shriner. What's up?
That's a funny thing because you never see the 20-year-old. It's always an 85-year-old guy on that tiny motorcycle.
Words that have never been said. Whew, that Shriner was hot.
Maybe Kathy's great uncle was a Shriner in the 20s.
I love it. Kathy, all due respect to your uncle, I'm not saying he wasn't a handsome piece of business, but was he handsome as a Shriner with a little white short sleeve collar shirt and a little cute in a tiny car on a tiny motorcycle, which, by the way, again, charming, just maybe not sexy.
Maybe not. Let's pick of the. Am I allowed to post a pic of
I
the
should
Shriners
be.
at Mardi Gras Parade on the Facebook page? I should be. You can post it on the True Crime Bingers page.
Yeah, they're fun.
Zach, you're using that Zach impression at your comedy shows. I think it's spot on.
Yeah. Sure it is. Sure it is.
That's horrible.
Listen, that's how I heard it when you said it. It was very condescending. That means like talking down to you.
We all know what that was. And that was meta.
Right. That's right. Handsome piece of business. Not usually on Wednesday. Glad I got to catch you guys. What's up, Darcy? He didn't ride the bike or car, but dressed as a clown.
There you go. Bringing joy to people.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to tell you guys when I came in here. I forgot what it was.
It never stops.
Listen,
never stops.
You're right, Nicole.
Pez.
Shriners raise a ton of money for
Pez.
charities. That's pretty sexy, in my opinion. Nicole, you're correct. That is very sexy.
Yeah, it all goes to the Ku Klux Klan, to their...
No! Ugh.
Done?
Kidding. I don't know what their money goes to.
I'm done.
Kathy says he was a handsome man. Listen, I've been canceled. Everyone knew I was going to get canceled. Would it be because I accuse Shriners of not being sexy? That no one saw that coming. No one saw that coming. But I was wrong.
I can't believe you just said that.
Wrong. I think you should have left it at young because again, I don't think I've ever seen a young Shriner. I've never seen a young Shriner.
You're right.
Do you know that years ago, like when I was like 21, we're gonna get to your Pez thing. Don't let me forget Pez thing.
It's fine. We don't.
No, I want to hear about it.
This is all pre-show. This is all pre-show all the time.
I do. It's
forgot to bring it up, and
I have to leave at 1:15. By the way.
Oh,
hard out.
Well, that's good to know. Why didn't you tell me that?
Hard out alert.
Because I was hoping we'd be done by then.
Oh, we're never done. We're never done.
I have a hard on at 1:15.
And I forgot what I was just starting to say. So,
no, to be clear, everyone, I'm not saying I don't love the Shriners. I hope that's very, very clear.
Don't they have hospitals
just jazzing.
And stuff?
No, they do wonderful work. Again, not saying they're not wonderful. I just was making some funny ha-has about them being goofy and that being charming. I don't need to see a hot, smoking hot Shriner. And I'm sure they're out there. But all they need to do is raise that money for the charities, and that is sexy. I've been canceled. This is it. I've been canceled. Hospital. I'm canceled. This is what it feels like.
Because of the Shriners. I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be just fine. But no, when I was like 21, we found out there was something called an Elks Lodge.
Yeah.
In our area, and it was a bunch of the firemen were like, if you go to become a member there, beers are like 50 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to go become a member there, and it was like the fucking Flintstones. Like you had to go to this like membership meeting, and they were top secret, and I'm not in there anymore. I only did it for the 1 year, so I don't care about their secrets. And they got a dude that wears a hat with elk horns on it.
It's the Grand Poobah.
It was literally the Grand Poobah that like went through, and they're like, and you vow to take the sacred oath of the elks to like for cheap beer. Like this is all. So what was real quick before we start?
That's how I got my storefront was through the Elks.
Through the Elks.
Mm-hmm.
You posted yesterday asking if anybody had Pez dispensers, and then you just said, I just wanted to see who has them. Like what's the deal with the Pez dispensers?
That's not what I said. I said I wanted to see what clients would come off of them.
Oh, that's not the way I read it. I thought you said repeatedly, I just want to see which of my clients had them and didn't want them or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you didn't say because you're collecting them. Is that the thing you're doing?
Yeah, why not?
Oh.
So I watched a stupid documentary, which jump started this. That's not how this started.
Okay.
When I was probably 8 or 9, there was a woman that came into the elementary school with a Pez collection, and I thought it was super fucking cool.
Okay.
And they displayed them for like a week, and I would go down and look at them every day while they were there. And I think they're fucking cool. And then I kind of forgot about them because Pez dispensers aren't real. They're just like mythical creatures that come and go in your life.
Okay.
Right. And then there's a fucking new Pez documentary that jump started my love for Pez dispensers.
So you're going to get into I collected one Pez dispenser.
I have a bunch of them now already.
Can anyone guess?
I don't think you can. You're not collecting it if you have one.
It makes sense. If now you know it'll get it. So and we need to hurry this along. So I'll give you 5 seconds. If anybody can guess the one Pez dispenser in the late 90s that I sought out, got, and I kept on a shelf for years.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy Pardo. Because you copy everything he does.
I would love for him to have had a Pez dispenser.
Has to do with a sitcom.
Andrew Dice Clay.
No. It has to do with a sitcom.
Oh, the Dennis Leary's character from the Fire Show, Rescue Me.
First of all, I said early 90s. Second of all,
I don't know when that show was on.
Frasier.
Pez dispensers are cartoon characters.
The Simpsons.
I think there's a Hulk
Frasier.
Hogan one, but I guess maybe he also was a cartoon.
I'll just tell you.
No, wait.
Anybody
give us a hint. Give us a hint. Just give us a hint.
It was from a sitcom. My inspiration for me wanting it was because of a sitcom episode in the late 90s. There it is. Jennifer Hill's on. So there's your
is
clue.
it a Seinfeld thing? Yeah,
Seinfeld,
gotta be a Seinfeld thing.
Jennifer, Porphyria, and Darcy all got Seinfeld. So, but which one
But
was
it's
it?
not Seinfeld.
Which one? No, but it was from the show.
Right.
Can anybody guess what Pez dispenser it actually was?
Because there was a Pez dispenser that is referenced in the show.
Yes.
That Pez dispenser is what you wanted.
Not Simpsons.
I'm gonna let that go. I don't care. The Pez documentary is called The Pez Outlaw, and it's about a dude that was like hawking black market Pez dispensers.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing.
They made a documentary about it.
Yeah, the dude's from Michigan too.
Yeah. I'm gonna give this 30 more seconds, see if everybody gets it. A lot of them care. They're all talking.
No, they're just
it's not a character it's not a character,
no, it's not
from
a character
Seinfeld.
From Seinfeld.
It's in the Seinfeld episode. There was a Pez dispenser.
Tweety Bird.
K.R. Fairfield. It was Tweety Bird. That's exactly
K.R.
right.
Fairfield should be sent a Truth and Justice shirt.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Send me a message, K.R. Fairfield, and I'll send you something for that.
Love it.
Yeah. So it was the episode where George's girlfriend was like singing an opera or something, and Jerry and Elaine were watching it, or she was playing the piano recital or something like that. And Jerry had come across this Tweety Bird Pez dispenser, and in the middle of the concert, he just reaches over and set the Tweety Bird Pez dispenser on her leg, and she started busting out laughing and couldn't stop laughing, and like it turned into like Seinfeld does. It spun into this whole thing. But then I went out and got a Tweety Bird Pez dispenser and kept it forever.
If anybody would like to donate to my collection, you can hit me up and I'll give you a mailing address.
My Tweety Bird one is probably still in a box somewhere after 10 moves since then.
I bet it's worth tens of dollars.
It could have been, or tens of cents. Yeah, tens of cents. It took everybody a little while. Now a bunch of people got it, but the first person that got it, if you message me, I'll send you something, a T-shirt or a hat, or
you know what, maybe
I should dig out. Like I sent Janet for her birthday.
Ew. No one needs that.
All right. And we're gonna start the show. He's like, "Where's a pirate hat for his?" So how many do you have, real quick?
A bunch. I don't know. I think
that's what we need. Somebody find him a pirate Pez. There's got to be one.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
They have so many.
So you don't have a pirate Pez dispenser?
I don't have a pirate Pez dispenser.
There you go.
Big head, little body. But okay, so all right, let's go back into the show here.
Lois Robbins. Batman and Robin.
Right.
Lois Lane, Batman and Robin.
Can I do this? You're the one that has the heart out. All right, what's up, everybody? I know that you didn't know I was gone because we didn't miss an episode, but I just got back from my assignment. Happy to be back in the studio here with Zach and Janet on the Zoom, and we're here to talk about the Lois Robbins interview and the content that I had out before that. So first things first, did you, because I had a kind of visceral reaction to this interview. when I heard it, and especially because I've met Lois, I've interviewed Lois personally, and I've heard like her side of how all of this went down. But I mean, I'll start with Zach. Zach, what did you think of the interview?
There was a lot there. It was a lot to digest. I'm happy that we got to hear it all, and I'm happy you reached out to Lois the way you said you did, and she gave her blessing to actually play the interview. But the thing that jumped out to me is it's two interviewers, am I correct?
Yes.
That are throughout the interview.
Vargas and Bodmer.
And I believe it's when Bodmer jumps in later in the interview. I mean, just absolutely made me sick to my stomach immediately. The attitude he has, the way he jumps in, the way he continues to push, the fact that he showed her the photo, that I don't think this is necessary for her. You know, and there's so much there that really was upsetting.
Literally says no one should have to see that. You're right.
Yeah.
So why did you show it to her?
Yeah, we had a lot of reaction from that from the listeners.
And then the little snippet at the end, I mean, I'm sure we have a lot of this too, but the little snippet at the end when they're like done recording, but they continue to record, and his attitude, I mean, it was very disheartening to hear.
It was, well, I know we're going to get probably into some of that stuff, so I'll wait. But Janet, what were your thoughts?
I got to be honest with you. I'm going to use someone else's comment to tell you how I felt about the episode. That's how much I loved the comments that we got from our follow-up today from Facebook. I'm just going to say Bridget, but I love the spelling of Bridget's name, says, big respect for Lois for standing up for herself, her friend's privacy, I'm not giving you her cell phone number, and asking relevant questions. She did not seem intimidated, but maintained a respectful tone. She answered their questions fully and stayed true to people she called friends. I'm impressed with her clear boundaries and her honest ownership. Only her business. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, that's not a response to the entirety of the interview and what I thought about the interviewers, but I want to give a huge shout out to Lois as well. I thought she handled that interview supremely well, considering what was being thrown at her from the very beginning.
She did. And I was, as I mentioned in the episode, like I was torn about, you know, her talk about the brief relationship she had with Robert, because it was so and those were things that were really difficult on me when I'm trying to decide what to do, because I don't want it to look like I'm trying to hide something to protect Robert. But you know, Lois has nothing, you know, like for her to have that information out there. And I just want to just say very clearly how impressed I am with her. I reached out to her and you know, told her, you know, this is what's coming up next, but this is in there and I don't really know what to do about it. What does she think? And she told me that she's been listening along, and after hearing Jeremy, she knew that she was probably next. And she said it is very personal to have that stuff out there, but what I want is for the full truth to be out there. And if that means that some of my personal business gets put out there, then so be it. Play it. So I just want to say how much respect I have for her for that to be, because I probably wouldn't have shared it. And it would have been a tricky thing, and people would have people certainly would have come and said, you know, why didn't you share that? You didn't want people to know this stuff about Robert, which in my opinion kind of cuts the other way. It kind of shows kind of exactly what I thought what was, you know, it leans toward the idea of what I think probably on there, which was that Robert was trying to have a little hookup with Becky.
Maybe.
And that kind of supports that. And I don't know if that's
Maybe
true
not.
or not, but that's the kind of the way that I see things kind of shaken out. That's why, you know, once Christian was going, kind of the things got kind of foiled and they didn't go that route. But anyway, big respect to Lois.
And I get why she felt, you know, she uses the term that their apartment was raided, because it sounds like the search warrant was executed without them being there. And it sounds like they came home. The way she explained it is they came home to the apartment a mess, which would make it feel like your home got raided.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, more so than, you know, typically when you hear about a search warrant being executed, you know, there's people there, they know what's going on. But if you just come home and your apartment's flipped and there's a note on the table, you definitely feel like it's been raided.
Yeah.
Well, I know people who have had search warrants issued, and they also felt like it was they were being raided while they were there. So it depends on the conduct of the police. I think it's probably a terrifying experience. However, like official and respectful it's, you know, said to be or claimed to be, I just can't even imagine going through that. It's makes me like stressed out and makes my stomach hurt to even think about. So
yeah, and I think now that you guys heard that, you'll see why. I'm sure you saw why when I said last week that I'm pretty sure Jeremy in his first call did overhear something. And I think the
Yeah.
word rated is probably some of the reason. When I heard Lois saying that, I'm like, oh, she probably did have that conversation and he
Sure.
overheard it, which makes sense because it's a particular choice of words.
Well, and the idea that he knew that it was pertaining to that murder, I mean, doesn't seem alarming to me either, because what else do they have going on in their lives? If Christian is a roommate there and that is going on and their house has a search warrant issued on it, then yeah, you would know what it's going on. Like, it's not like they just magically were selling drugs and no one knew about it. Like,
Right.
clearly it's about this case.
Yeah. All right. With that, let's go ahead and get into the questions.
Great. I'm going to start with Sandy. Another kind of overview, some different thoughts about the interview. Sandy says, aside from being bothered by the tone and tenor of this interview, I thought there were some tells and concerns. Are investigators supposed to inform folks they are interviewing that specific people inside the circle? I understand terms like person of interest or even suspect, but my understanding is these terms meet specific criteria, which includes how and to whom they can be referred. I also thought a huge tell was when whichever officer said that they aren't the type of investigators to throw someone into the circle and then make them fit, even referred to this type of behavior as disgusting, when in fact that is exactly what they were doing, and I think they knew darn well that they were. This was total intentional deflection.
Yeah, I mean, in general, my opinion of the interview techniques here are terrible. This is the stuff how wrongful convictions happen is when I'm going to try to avoid referencing the entire episode back to the Anand case, but it's the same thing, right? So they've decided somebody's guilty, and then they go interview people and intentionally put in their minds that someone is guilty while interviewing them. It's a terrible tactic to get to the truth. And there was their bias. Someone in the YouTube chat said, I learned more about Bodmer and Vargas as investigators during this episode than he did anything about Robert or Christian. And I feel the same way. You see, like, these guys, and you have to understand these cold case units have to close cold cases to justify their existence. They are a line item on a budget where, there's certain money set aside for a unit just to solve cold cases. And if they're not solving cold cases, then that line item will go away if they're not. And it's very obvious they're just trying to find something to get a conviction here.
Which is so troubling because as a person who, lost someone who was a victim of a crime, obviously the family are victims as well. That's the best news in the world to find out that there's a cold case investigator that's been assigned to your case. And it gives you so much hope. And I'm sure that, most people conduct their business with integrity. I want to believe that. I hope that's largely true because you want it to be great news. I mean, Bob, we have someone in our family who was killed, and it's all we want is for them to assign a cold case team that is just going to look at everything afresh and make something. Nobody wants them to arrest the wrong person. We want that. It should still have the same level of integrity as every other expectation was like, yeah, we have the money for this. It doesn't always mean we're going to be able to solve the cases, but it's very important for us to have this line item so that we can revisit things because investigators are dealing with such an inflow of cases all the time that they stop having any time at all to look back at anything old.
Yeah, it would be nice if it worked that way. And I'm sure it does in some places, but especially in a lot of these like bigger city areas where there's a lot of politics going on and there's a lot of positioning to move up the ranks and things like that. We just see it all the time. Corners get cut. Now, on the good side of that, where we've discussed in some other cases when you have like conviction integrity units, that works in the favor of the wrongfully convicted because it's the same thing. Conviction integrity units aren't worth the money unless they're overturning convictions. That's their purpose. So that's when you start to see DAs that are, or ADAs that are actually willing to work with people that are convicted for DNA testing and stuff like that, because they want to get overturned convictions. Otherwise, they don't need to exist, and they won't exist if time goes on.
Right. Okay, next I want to say, this is a quick question from Shelley. I caught this morning as I was getting ready, so it's a little out of order. But Shelley says, not necessarily related to this specific episode, but just a general question. With all the various players in this case and their ties to local law enforcement, did the defense ever try to get the trial moved to a different jurisdiction? I don't know if we've ever talked about that, have we?
I don't think we have, and I believe, yes, I've had this discussion with family members of the defendants, and I believe I better get back to you because my memory is telling me, yes, they wanted to move it and they weren't able to, and it was like, I think it was moved like courtrooms, like it was like in La Quinta instead of being in Riverside or something like that. I don't remember exactly how all that shook out, but I believe there was a request to move it.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this idea of Lois being lied to about some kind of identity theft, which is you mentioned at the beginning. I don't know if you have more information on that. Anna says, did I hear correctly? The police told Lois her identity had been stolen to get her into the station? Why lie to ask her to come in? It was because they were monitoring the phones and they were hoping that someone would slip up. Like, what is... Lynn had the same question. Why?
I don't know, and she mentioned that to me in the interview I did with her, and then in the transcript of the phone call where she called Christian afterwards, she mentioned, she's like, yeah, they told me that I was like a victim of identity theft, or it could have maybe had been like she was, or she thought she was. I don't know. And she had called the police about it, but she says that when I got there, they told me, you're not a victim, but we want to talk to you about something else. And then they took her to an interrogation room and had this. I don't know why they did that instead of just asking her to come in and talk about this case. Maybe it's because they didn't want her to call Jackie and Christian to find out what's going on or to get an attorney. So maybe that's all I could think of, is that it was easier for them once they had her there and she was isolated, then to take her in to do the interview.
Okay. Yeah, because Angie was like, did we miss the part where they explained that, hadn't actually happened? But it sounds like because that wasn't in a recording that we heard.
Right.
Okay. The crime scene photo. Sarah, Cybele, lots of people asking about this. Sarah also wanted to give commendation to Lois, and no, I'm sorry. This is commendation for you, Bob. I can't believe that I tried to give up a compliment to someone else that was meant for
when
you.
When it was for moi?
When it was for vous. Toi. Two. Okay. Sarah says, first, I just want to commend Bob for giving Lois the agency over releasing her interview, given some of those personal details. Also appreciate Lois not handing out Jackie's number and asking questions about what from her interview she will have access to. Very smart lady. Yes, and asking those questions like, will I be able to access this information later? I thought that was also I totally agree with you, Sarah. Can we talk about that last little bit of the recording after the interview? Oh, yeah. Okay, let's come back to that because I want to go shout out James, Leah, Robin, Sarah, and then Sarah and Cybele. They showed Lois a picture. Was it a crime scene picture of Becky? Can we absolutely confirm that? And then Robin even said, like, do we know what pictures were shown or what picture was shown?
I don't know exactly what picture, but I know from talking to Lois that they were crime scene photos, and I believe they were photos of Becky, like of Becky's body. I don't know if it was her in the wheelbarrow or if it was her on the autopsy table, but yeah, they definitely showed her crime scene photos of Becky's body to try to shock her, to try to well, and you heard the tone of it. Janet, you said it when we were in the pre-show where they were, they tried to make her feel like this is terrible that this happened, and it's your fault that we're not catching anybody because you're not telling us anything that we want to hear. And they use that tactic. And like I said, I believe it was Bodmer's voice I heard who said, like, no one should have to see pictures like that. And all I could think is, yeah, no shit. No one should. So why did you do that? She has no connection to this crime whatsoever. Like, Christian didn't even live there at their apartment at the time. And to take her and do that to her was horrible. She didn't even know Becky. She didn't know who she was.
Yeah, it's also just it's hard because it's coming on the heels of the interview that we have now heard, the bonus interview with Jeremy, and the conversations that we've had about Jeremy in general, and how hard of a fit it seems like to have any of that really make a ton of sense. It just feels like pushing a lot for a piece of Jeremy's claims that are kind of minor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the connection to her is really about the anonymous call, which is such a vague piece of information. It just seems like a lot to do to someone who the person that you've talked to who says, this is this is how I know all this information. Part of it is overhearing her saying something about a raid. And then it turns into them being like, it's basically your fault that no one has been caught for this crime. Just like, oof, that's because up to that point, she just doesn't seem, I don't know. I can't tell when someone's lying. I know we've talked about that. Dr. Shiloh's talked about that. But it just doesn't seem like she's being a difficult interview or, duplicitous or aggressive or, combative. It just seems so cooperative to then turn it into like, it's understandable that you're a coward, but maybe now's the time for you not to be that coward. Like, yikes.
Yeah, and keep in mind the timing of this. I don't know if I laid this out, but this was like 6 months after the anonymous phone call. So this interview was in 2012. It was years before the interview with Jeremy Witt.
Oh, I don't know if you said that. If you did, I missed
don't
that
know if I did either.
completely. Yeah, I didn't know where this fit into the chronology. I assumed it fit in after they had found Jeremy.
No. Well, and I think they knew who, as we mentioned last week, I think that she knew, or I think they knew who it was. So I know that what they were doing at one point where they were showing her pictures, they were showing her pictures of everybody that worked there. And that's where you hear who's that? Oh, that's Jackie. Yep. That's Robert. That's so-and-so. And then they showed her some other people. And that's what she's like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is, that part of it. But so they had that. So we know at this point, they had already gone through the process of identifying everyone who worked there at the time. And my guess is they also knew who had the military background, who was head of security, like, I think they knew who Jeremy Witt was at that point. I think so. But they didn't have any, like, all he told them was he overheard this conversation. And so I think their plan here was get her to tell us more. Like, right. Oh yeah, I know from talking to Jackie and Christian, yeah, he did it. That's what they were hoping for. They knew at this point that Witt was worthless because all he did was overhear a conversation.
Right.
So they were the reason they were pushing her is because they were hoping that she would be the one to say, oh, well, he confessed, or I knew he had that. Once she didn't, it gets right. You'll notice on the reports, it still says on the reports that are posted on our website that the case was still suspended at this time. And it wasn't. And then once they finally brought the charges were dropped, 2016 rolls around. That's when they go and contact Witt, have that unrecorded phone call or unrecorded conversation with him. Then he comes out and it's like, nope, now I didn't just overhear them talking about the raid. Christian confessed to me. And then they rearrested him 3 days later and took him to trial.
Yeah. Shout out to Susan P. in the chat who says, I try so hard to put law enforcement's actions into perspective and think, would this seem okay if Robert and Christian were actually guilty? I think that's a great place to be, great place to try to have your mindset and your giving of the benefit of the doubt. It's still a hard lesson. Like, does that change
and to me, the answer is no. Like they're trying to invoke an emotional response to get somebody to say what they want them to say. And that's not the way that you interview people.
Yeah.
Well, especially so far outside on the outskirts of this group of people too. I mean, this is not even a secondary witness. This is a tertiary witness that's just way out there that they're trying to get something out of. It's a little alarming.
And on that note, somebody earlier in the chat said something like, I think we're wasting our time with these teenagers. We need to move on. I just want you guys to know, like, we're right now we're addressing every element of the state's case, and we are almost done with it. We are almost done with the state's case. So we're not focusing on teenagers right now because I think the teenagers are relevant. We're focusing on them because that's what was used to convict Robert and Christian at trial.
Oh yeah, I took that YouTube comment to mean it just reinforces how much they were focusing on the teenagers and continue to try to like get blood from a stone, so to speak.
Yeah.
So let's go back to what Sarah was also talking about with this last little bit of the recording after the interview, the attitude there. And what does it matter whether or not Christian was shot by friendly fire? He was shot in combat regardless of where the bullet came from. So let's talk about I'm sure many of us had that same reaction of, wow, we're really listening to a lot of scratching and scuffle here. This better pay off. Why is Bob playing this? Why is Bob playing all of this stuff that he usually cuts out and says is, annoying and not worth listening to? And then we hear this little bit of stuff at the end. Bob, can you recap that for us and then talk about your feelings about it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I decided to let you guys suffer through it because I wanted you to hear that attitude from Bodmer. And there's a couple things, because you hear with Jeremy Witt too. I think, some people are like, what's Witt's motivation? I think part of his motivation is, I think that Witt is a narcissist, and he doesn't like that Christian's being held up as a hero, and he's not. And I think that plays into his irritation with Christian. And in Bodmer's case, I think, and Bodmer is also an Army vet, by the way, from what I picked up from context, which is the same as Christian. To me, Bodmer is trying to justify his bad behavior, is what I hear when he's saying that stuff, because this is a fellow army vet. He is pulling some bullshit to try to close this case. I think he probably feels a little guilty about that. And so he's trying to me, it sounds like he's trying to justify. He's like, well, I mean, yeah, he was shot, but it could have been friendly fire. It's probably nothing. It was probably no big deal. He's not a hero or anything. Like, we shouldn't feel bad about doing this to this guy because he's not a hero. It was probably just friendly fire.
Nicole in the chat says exactly that they didn't want to paint him, their bad guy, as a hero.
Right. And again, that was not meant for other people's ears. Right. So it wasn't even like they didn't want to paint him to the rest of the world as a bad guy. I think in his own mind, he couldn't reconcile his, and I don't know if Shiloh is still in the chat, but if she is, I'm curious what she has to say about this. But to me, it was like he couldn't reconcile in his mind that he's trying so hard to pin this crime on this guy, while he's also a war hero in the same branch of the service he was in. So he's like trying, it seems to me he's trying to explain that away. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Soledad in the chat says, is Bodmer the same as Sergeant Major Ryan T. Bodmer? He was PSYOPs.
I don't know. Could be. I mean, it is Ryan Bodmer, so it very well could be.
Interesting. Yeah, the moment where because we wear body mics on doing TV stuff. And by the way, I want to say right now, this is the saddest comparison to Erica's smarts about DNA that I'm like, yeah. I have something
Here's
to
your
offer.
expertise.
As an actress, we wear body mics, but that just felt so familiar to me because they keep the mics on and you forget you're wearing a mic. And in between scenes, sometimes people will be like shit talking someone, pardon the curse word, but they'll shit talk someone and be like, oh shit, I'm still mic'd. And like, you'll hear this like pushing of the mic, like you'll hear something like, I hope no one heard that. And so it felt so familiar to me at the end where he was like, yeah, this guy's a real standby. And then the thing gets turned off. Like,
two things. Reminds me of the Jinx where he confesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, let's leave it about my special offering I was able to bring to this conversation.
and secondly, that is the same Bodmer.
It is.
Yes, it is the same Bodmer.
So yeah. Yep. So that is the same one. But yeah, I know exactly. And there's always like the showrunner that you're talking shit about is sitting over in Video Village with a headphone in listening.
Yeah. Just that moment of recognition where he's like, oh, my mic's on and this is not good. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off and then I can continue whatever like shitty thing I was saying.
I always cut the opposite way. I always like to mess with the sound guys when I go to the bathroom between takes when we do stuff. And I talk to like, hey, Mariel, I'm going pee right now. Do you hear me? Are you listening? I'll come out and I have the headphones around, you bastard.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the wiretap. Teresa says, at what point did Robert and Christian learn they were wiretapped? Can you confirm what dates the wiretaps covered?
I will have to go back and check on the dates. I think there was 600 plus hours of wiretaps. I don't have the audio of those, but there's transcripts and I think somebody had asked if I could share the tape or the transcript of her call with Christian. I will put the transcript of that up because it's because you'll see, because it's almost like they prodded her and then immediately they go back and they're listening to the tap to see. And she does call him, but she's calling him going, what the hell? They brought me in here to do this. And she's like, she doesn't know her name. And she's even like, what the fuck is that? I think the transcript says she's like, what the fuck is her name? Rebecca or something. Yeah. But they were doing this, but there's nothing there. There's I think somebody said 900 hours. I thought I saw 600 hours. It was over years that they were tapping their phones. And there's conversations between Robert and Christian, between, Kristen and Jackie, there's all these calls.
Isn't
And
there
out
like
of
that
that,
rule where it has to sound like it could be about something and then you have to stop listening?
yes. Yeah. So there, and I think that's mentioned in there that there's like the number of hours that they recorded. And then there's some of the, within so many seconds, they have to, like, if it's not about this, they have to stop listening. Yeah. And if they're talking anything about this that could be relevant, they can keep listening and keep recording, and they got nothing out of any of it.
And so when they talked to Lois, they potentially were like, well, if nothing else, maybe we just wiggled the wire, or whatever that expression is that I pretend to have learned from the show The Wire, where it's like it will do something to like spice up what we might hear over the phones. Okay, got it. Yeah, Matt had asked about hearing the audio or reading the transcript from between Lois and Christian. Also, I think it's amazing that the person that Christian confessed to thought his name was Kristen. So that's cool. They were obviously very tight because in Jeremy's interview, he just keeps calling him Kristen. Okay. Let's see. Kate, respect the fact
Which,
of
by
not
the way,
wanting
I that's something I hadn't caught. So that just occurred to me when you said that. That tells you even more where
it
his
bothered me
information was
so
coming
much.
from, because his name is spelled
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
So on the documents the police had
Yes.
that they may have been showing him or telling him, it says Kristen, but that's not how he pronounces it.
Correct.
So that's it. We're always, as I always say,
super
always
on the
look at.
inside of this. Jeremy was super on the inside of this with Kristen, his friend.
But it's bigger than that, because what I've always said, like, when information like comes out, again, God damn it, Jay Wilds and the phone records, like, if you can trace it, so let's go to do another one, season 3 with the a necklace, Kiao Gove's necklace, our season 3 with it was, you can see here the police think the necklace is missing, and then this next interview, it's her husband Ken says that it was stolen, and then here's where the police found out, oh shit, it's still there. And the next, so like, when you can track information and it's where its source is, that tells you the police are feeding information to be. Oh, and that's what it was. It was Jesse's mom when they had interviewed Ken Gove, and Ken Gove said her necklace was missing. Then they interviewed Jesse's mom, and his mom says, yeah, he came back and he told me, and he had stole this necklace, and this is what it looked like. And then they interview Ken again, and he's like, oh, I found her necklace. Then you go back, and all of a sudden the necklace wasn't part of the narrative anymore.
Yeah.
So you can like,
that one. Ooh, I forgot about that. Ooh, that was so weaselly and awful.
Yeah. And so that's the same thing like this. You can source where the information comes from. The documents that the cold case investigators who had never talked to Christian, their documents say Kristen, which is probably how they pronounced it, because that's what it looks like. And they had never spoke to him. They're only looking at documents, and their big witness who knew him personally is pronouncing it the way the officers would have been pronouncing.
I can't remember. I yes, that makes sense. I can't remember if the officers also said his name that way. They may have said it right. So just a warning, because I can't remember. Okay. So anyway, back to Kate says, respect not wanting to play those personal conversations. Was any of it used during trial? Even referred to in opening or closing statements? Anything like that?
Of Lois's interview?
Mm-hmm.
No, because there's nothing there.
Got it. And none of the wiretap calls. There's nothing there that was used in trial. No. Yeah. And then Kate also asks, are you going to provide or play or read the opening and closing statements just to give the jury's context for their ruling?
Yeah, when we wrap things up, and I should say, like, we're getting close. I don't mean close like next week, but we're getting closer to the end of this, because we're getting to there's one more element of the state's case that we need to cover that I probably won't cover this year. As you guys know, I was out of town. I just got back into town. It's Wednesday. So I think there's another element of the state's case that wasn't used at trial. We'll probably do this week, just so I can get that out and then because I need to do some research for the other one. So we got a couple more elements of the state's case to cover. We've got some alternate suspects that we need to cover. And then, I'm going to go through the opening closing statements. I have invited, as we do every season, someone who believes they're guilty to come on and have a discussion so everybody can hear that. I don't want to call it a debate, but hear that discussion between the two. to hear kind of both perspectives of it. And then we'll be wrapping things up. You know, we've found a lot of stuff that we've turned over to the attorneys to work on the case. So so that stuff, yes, I will get to, but also just to give you a heads up, that the season is approaching its end.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about that. That's hard in a way.
It always is
very
at the
attached to this
at the
case,
end of the
yeah.
season, because when you get to the point, for me, it's always very difficult to where I get so attached to the case and so connected to the file, and I spend every single day reading in this file and working on it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, where can we still put out useful episodes and information on it, and when is it time to pass the baton off to the attorneys and move to the next one? And that's always difficult for me at the end of when we start approaching the end of every season.
Yeah. Okay. Danielle says, related to Jeremy Witt's statement, what was the actual timeline with respect to the search warrant being executed on Lois, Jackie, and Christian's apartment and Christian leaving for the military?
It was about 6 months. The date off the top, it was in the fall of 2007 when the search warrant was. It might have been September or October. Someone in the chat might tell us exactly when, but it was in the fall of 2007, and he left for boot camp. If we go back to his letters, it was like, I think end of February 2008 is when he left. So it wasn't as Witt said in his initial call that it was. I overheard the conversation. The search had just happened, and 2 weeks later he was gone. That's not true. It was months later.
Well, that conversation, the Jeremy bonus interview, was, I mean, it's a very interesting listen, and we obviously didn't talk much about it last week, but boy, it feels like, just like you said, like they're trying so hard to make things fit, and they keep having to backpedal on stuff because at some point Jeremy's like, yeah, this happened, then this happened, then of course I quit right after that, so blah blah blah. And then as they're trying to tease out and like really figure out timing and stuff, like Bodmer has to be like, so I mean, if you quit in April, probably that thing you said about you quit right afterwards, like that's probably not going to work, because that doesn't make sense with when Christian left. So like there's just a lot of like, it's okay if you don't remember. It's okay if you don't remember. It would help me if it was around this time. So it's not helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's very much a feeling of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole during that. Amy asked in the chat if this is the first time we've had a case so soon after conviction. The soonest one we had was Sandy Melgar's. We were like, Sandy hadn't even filed her direct appeal yet, but this is other than that, yeah, usually we're dealing with someone that had been in for a very long time and they had already maybe taken a shot at habeas and we're trying to find new evidence. In this case, they're still working on their initial habeas, their proverbial bite at the apple right now. So it's the timing of this is great for us to be going through and finding all this information.
Okay.
And Teresa said it was October 7th when 2007 when the search happened. Thanks, Teresa.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Teresa. Teresa said same Teresa. We love you, Teresa. Did the defense hear the anonymous call from Jeremy Witt? Curious if there was any questions about why his story morphed.
Yeah, they heard it, and if you look in the pretrial hearing, the transcript that's posted, the one that was read into the trial, you hear they're trying to cross-examine him about that. So yeah, they were trying to shoot holes in it, and you heard that in the interview. It's funny because Bodmer in that interview uses his words. So for example, he says that like he didn't want to put all his cards on the table. And he tries in the manner which, like you were just discussing, Janet, where Bodmer's like, well, and Jeremy, in that first when you in that call, you didn't tell us about the confession because, well, you said right then you didn't want to put all your cards on the table, right? And he's like, yeah, exactly. I didn't want to put all my cards on the table. But when you go read the transcript, it's not what he said at all. He said Christian didn't tell him about what happened because he thought Christian didn't want to put all his cards on the table. But then they used that piece and twisted it around to where it was Jeremy. So that's why, that's how they try to explain it away. Well, yeah, I knew it then, but I didn't want to put all my cards on the table. But when you read the transcript, that's not what he said. He very specifically said Christian gave him no more information because he thinks Christian didn't want to put all his cards on the table.
Yeah. Well, they used it. Mary Elizabeth wants to know if we'll hear more from Lois, and Teresa wants to know if Lois testified at the trial.
She did not testify at the trial, and I've got a bunch of interviews that I'm trying to decide when to play, and I may put them out as bonus episodes. I talked about this months ago when I first started the case. My first trip to California, as I was getting the case files, the first thing that I did is I went and interviewed a bunch of the defendants' family members that had been affected by all this stuff. You heard Jana, who's Christian's mother. You heard that interview, and a lot of they're very emotional as they talk about everything they were going through. But then I decided, well, I don't want to sway anybody or bias anybody by hearing that stuff up front. So I still have those. And the interview I did with Lois and Jackie together when they talk about their whole experience. So at some point I want to get those out to you guys so you'll hear more from Lois. I'm just not sure when or how to put it. And it kind of goes back to when I'm trying to decide when to wrap the season up. I don't want to just start. I don't ever want to get to the point where we're putting out content for the sake of putting out content. If it's not going to move the case forward, then I don't want to waste everybody's time on it. And these are things that are not going to move the case forward, but they're also stuff I want you to hear. So I may put them out as like bonuses and stuff like that.
Well, whatever you do, I hope you do. I mean, to me, that is still really important. Whether it moves the case directly forward or not, you also have, tens of thousands of listeners, more than that, who have all spent a year on this and who are invested as well and want to hear from people who are affected by it and the people who are still fighting this fight. So I think we'll all be very happy for you to share anything like that.
Yeah. And you could probably guess who, Janet, but I have a particular person in mind that I have not interviewed yet that I want to interview to close out the season, who I think very perfectly captures what all of you, the listeners, the work you've done means to them and what you've done for their family by helping and being a part of this along the way. So that for sure will be coming at the end of the season.
Cool. Teresa said, did these cold cases, we're almost done because I know we have a little bit of a timeline hard out for Zach, but did these cold case or new investigators uncover and pursue any new line of inquiry when they picked up the case?
Jeremy Witt. That was it. And there's the one other element that I'm going to cover probably next week, but it's still like very far removed from anything actual, resembling actual evidence. But yeah, the only thing that changed from 2006 to the 2014 arrest and the drop in the charges, the only thing that changed was they got Jeremy Witt to say that he overheard a confession. That was it. That was the only new evidence they found,
which was a big deal.
Yeah,
certainly used as
they
a
got
huge
convicted.
deal. Yeah.
So, and there's people that have said, like, I don't think the jury really thought about it really, but it's like, well, they convicted him with no evidence. So it must have meant something to him.
Yeah. Megan says, did Bodmer know Ron Friedley?
I don't know. I don't know that. I would assume yes, because they both worked at the sheriff's department at the same time. But I don't know specifically if they knew each other.
That's all I got. There was some other great stuff, but I think we sort of touched on it already. Zach, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well then we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. So I think I just got back into town and I'm trying to like wrap my brain around continuing forward. I think what I'm going to do for this week is, because there's been a lot of talk about it as certain people have kind of grasping at straws for something that's left to look to make Robert and Christian look guilty. There was an interview that was Becky's cousin, and she kind of came into the spotlight because she interviewed on some of the TV stuff, like on news articles, was Crime Watch or the First 48 or something like that, and had what appeared to be some pretty damning information about Robert and Christian. It was not used at trial for good reason. But that's something that I can get together because I literally have 24 hours to get this thing together. So I think we'll put that out for this week, and then next week we're going to cover the last element of the state's case that was used at trial against Robert and Christian. So that's all that we have coming up in these next couple of weeks. Thanks everybody for listening and staying engaged. And believe me, the work that you guys have, for those of you that are out there, which are tens of thousands of you that have committed to actually looking at this case and trying to find the truth and have spent the time digging through and reading the documents, it is more meaningful than you can ever realize, not only to the three of us sitting here, but particularly to the families and the defendants. It means a lot. And I just want to just remind you all of how appreciative we are and how proud I am to be a part of this group of all of you that are doing this work. And we're going to continue doing this work. I'm not going to share it yet, but season 13 is going to be super interesting, and we're going to need all of your help. And that's going to be coming once season 12 is over. I'm rambling a little bit. I didn't plan on talking about any of this. I just reading the YouTube. I was just reading the YouTube chat, and I just thought, man, there's so many good people that are helping, and it just makes me so happy.
Great questions and
to see the people that are that are so engaged and trying to help. So
it's phenomenal.
With that being said, now we will end the show, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, we can end on our audio. You can hit stop on your audio, JV.
Stopping.
Oh shit, we forgot. Hey, for those of you guys in the YouTube chat, I meant to do this on the show. Janet's other podcast, the JV Club. Is it Braving the Elements or the JV Club?
No, it's the JV Club. It's my oldest podcast where I interview famous people about their teenage years, including Bob Ruff and Zach Weaver, if he'll do it.
I'm waiting for my invite.
You're
invited. Wait till summer.
You have no idea how many.
Do you still only do the boys in the summer? Boys of summer?
Yeah.
Yep.
My teenagers will fuck you up. So, just so you're aware.
I'm scared. I'm a little scared, but I'm excited.
But that Janus Network, there you go. It's run like public radio, where once a year you do like pledges.
It's like
and
a pledge drive. Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people, if they want to help support the other work that you do, where can they go do that?
Well, if you want to check out that podcast, it's called the JV Club. The only way we are able to do it at all is it's listener supported, and you can go to maximumfun.org/join, or just follow me on social media, and you'll see lots of cool stuff. There's a lot of really great podcasts on the network, and we share. It's really special, actually. It's like a little collaborative kind of, like, you don't just have to support my podcast with $5 a month. You can support 5, and then all that kind of gets splits among us. So it's very sweet and wonderful. So if you check it out, check out some of the other great podcasts, and give us some support if you can.
Yeah, go support Janet. And the next week I'll remember to do that when we're still recording.
Oh, thanks.
All right. It just occurred to me right at the end.
No, that's so nice of you to do it all.
I'm going to end our live stream.